What's up guys, TechLab here. Now in our last video where we took a look at our water cooling things, you guys let me know what kind of things I needed to get. So I've been picking up some extra things. We've got a very cheap water block that's going to be for our proof of concept. We've got some connections, we've got some pipe, we've got some blanks, but more importantly, we've got one of these. Now, lots of you told me out there that what I needed to do was make sure that I test the system thoroughly before I even added water. And to do that, we need something like this. Now, this is a custom loop tester from EK Water Blocks. It actually uses air to test your system, so it's way before you actually put your water in. And today I thought we'd go through it and show you what you actually get, how to put it all together, and maybe give it a little bit of a demo. Okay, so following your advice, I actually picked up this EK leak tester. It actually uses air to test your water cooling system before you actually go and put water in it, so there's no risk of any kind of leaks and stuff. I actually managed to pick this up pretty cheap. Generally, you can get them from pretty much any brand and they cost around 30 to 40 pounds, but I managed to get this up from eBay for about £12. Now that is an absolute bargain, but I do believe it is a slightly older model, and once we jump into the box, I'll show you what that actually means, because there has been some revisions on this that really do improve it. Jumping into the box, we can just open it all up and you can see that it is a pre-owned unit, so there's no kind of real packaging or anything, but we've got all the components that we need. This is actually the pump. This is actually going to be able to pump air through the system and into the block. That is obviously definitely needed. Then we have the gauge. Now this gauge is going to actually tell us where the pressure is. I'm not 100% sure what kind of pressure we should be using for a system, but we have a little green box here and I'm sure we've got to kind of go into that kind of level. It is pretty good condition because it's still got all the label and stickers on it, so it means that it hasn't really been used that much. Then we get a few other things in the box. We've got this little tap here which allows us to just lock that pressure off when we leave it so that we can test that there's any leaks and things like that. We've also got a connector here which is used for the other side, and that is actually going to connect into this unit and then it'll go onto the system itself. There are a few other little pieces inside the box, but I'm not 100% sure what they are. There's a little cap there which seems to just be a bit of a block off. Then we've got an extra little adapter. Maybe that's used for something else because it kind of looks a little bit like a bike pump, so maybe they're just for something else. The key components are on the desk there. Now to connect this system together, it's actually pretty simple. We do have our little gauge here and then we need to connect the tap. Now unfortunately it didn't actually come with any instructions and I didn't even really need to look it up. You can just connect the tap just like this, making sure you've got the little rubber O-ring in between, and you just screw it on just like that. Now to connect the other side, we actually have this little double block here, which actually just screws straight into this side. And you've got to make sure again that you've got the little rubber O-ring in between. Now, unfortunately, we're not actually going to be using this. We're going to get into the reasons why we're not going to be using this, because the updated versions of these are slightly different, and I think we can actually MacGyver something up. For the pump side, it obviously needs to connect to the tap side, and to do that, you simply just screw it on just like that and it should seal up, and we've pretty much got the unit done. Now all we need to do to use this is obviously connect it to a system. Then we just pump the system here, lock the tap off, and then we just leave it with the pressure up and see if actually any pressure is lost. Now to do this, we currently don't have a custom loop system set up because we're still waiting for parts. But to begin with, we can actually give it a bit of a test. The beauty of a system just like this is that you can actually test individual components together. Now, when we actually did our last video, we took you through the little reservoirs that we had and the pump as well, and these needed to actually be connected. To connect it up, we needed a little connector here, and we simply just screwed it into the actual pump itself, and then we screwed the reservoir onto the top. Now, once this unit is complete, what we can do now is actually use this tool to test the connection between the pump and the reservoir, and it'll make sure that there is no leaks on here or any of the connections in. Now to do that, we will need to block off a few connections here, so we do have some extra little block off taps that we're going to use to do it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to attempt to connect the pressure tester to the actual fill hole. So what we're going to do is we're going to block off the return pipe, and we're also going to block off the pump out, and we're going to use these little connections to do that. Now that should be a sealed unit, but we need to test it of course. Now usually what you would do is you would actually use this little dual block, screw it into the system while it's connected to the actual gauge, and you would thread the gauge on, but instantly we saw a problem. Now the problem with this is, imagine if this pump is inside your system, attempting to get this inside could have all sorts of problems. Now it's not too bad if you actually have a spare connection on the front. What you can simply do is just unconnect the pump itself, thread it onto the system, and then connect your pump straight up. But unfortunately, we're not going to have the space to do that. And that's how they kind of fixed these going forward. What I believe is the newer versions of these actually have this little corded flexi pipe on the other side, and the pump is actually connected very closely to the unit. Now that means that you can actually flex the wire around and you can actually get it into a system, you can flex it all around, but I think we can actually produce something ourselves. Now when I actually purchased the connections for this system, I decided to go with a flexible pipe, and that is based on your guys' recommendations. So I had to get flexible pipe ends, and unfortunately to get these at a decent price, I had to kind of really weirdly purchase them. So I got 4 in a pack, I got 2 silver, 2 black. Now the system that we're going to hook up eventually is going to use the black ones, so I've got a bunch of these little silver ones spare. Now I think that if we actually take a bit of a cut from this pipe, and we'll purchase some more later on for the actual proper system, we can actually produce or create our own flexible system to get a pipe in off of the tester. Now to do this, all we would need to do is connect up the connection. So we'll undo the top of that, and this gives us a little bit of practice as well for when we come to do the system. Screw in the connection into the other end. Now that is ready for a pipe system going on. We can also do the same for the other end, and we can actually remove this dual connection off the top. And the principle will be that this connection will be on the pipe, and we'll just screw it into the system, and we should be able to do that pretty much anywhere we want once it's actually inside a case. But we'll give it a go, and we'll cut some of this pipe and we'll see if we can actually get it connected. So now that I've actually cut a piece of pipe off, it's not massively that long, and we can always recreate this again. This is the beauty of doing a bit of a MacGyver job on things. All we'll need to do is simply connect it up to the system. Now this is going to be exactly the same as if we were actually connecting up the water cooling system. So we're going to actually have to try and get these pipes on here. We'll get them nice and tight. And that should be on there now. Put the collar around and tighten the collar up. So this at least gives us a little bit of practice for later on. Now, using this kind of system, because we're going to be using this pipe anyway in our build, hopefully there's no leaks on this pipe, but it will give a bit of a test anyway, because if this pipe can't take the pressure, then the whole system's not going to be able to do it later. But we'll keep going and we'll stick the other end on. Once this is locked off, we should actually have ourselves a flexible pipe system for our pump. So that's exactly how it looks. Now, to be able to put this onto the system, of course, what we'll need to do is put it in to a system and rotate it round. So let's get this installed onto here. With the pipe system actually connected up, we just need to get the pump installed, which should be simpler than the other side, to be honest. Open up our tap. That should be in the open position, and then just start pumping. Now, as you can see, the pressure is going into the system, and we're going to take it up to just kind of in between the green. We're just going to go just above the green, and we'll see what happens. Now, as we can see, as we're pumping this, it's actually not holding any pressure at all. So there is a leak on this system somewhere. So let's make sure that we tighten everything up. I don't suspect there's any kind of problem with this unit here. I have tested the kind of breech system before, so that one's a little bit loose. So let's tighten that one up. We'll tighten up the block offs that we've put on. And then we'll just give a squeeze of the system round, just so it should block off anything else from in there. And we'll give it another pump. Now, after a big bunch of pumping, we finally managed to get it into the green, and we're just going to lock that top off there. And what we want to do is leave this now for 15 minutes, and we should see if it's actually moved. It's 1, 2, 3 little bars up from the 0.5 bar. So let's leave it for 15 minutes and see if there's actually any loss of pressure. So it has now been 15 minutes, and as you can see from the gauge, it hasn't actually moved. We're still 3 bars up from the 0.5, so this system is actually holding air perfectly fine. There shouldn't be any leaks on this now going forward. So that's actually tested at least the connection between the reservoir and the pump. We'll obviously need to do this on the full system, but that is how you actually test with a leak tester before you actually get anywhere near the water. Now we'll just release the air off of this system here. You just need to put your finger in the end and it will actually release the air off. Disconnect this from the actual reservoir, and we know that this is actually tested. So I'm not going to touch that again now. That is actually tested for leaks. There's no leaks on it at all. We'll obviously need to remove the plugs so that we connect the rest of the system up, but I'm pretty happy with that. Once we actually get some more pipe, because we really don't have enough now for a proof of concept system, we're going to purchase some more pipe. We're going to get the radiator. That's the last thing that we're really waiting for, as well as a bracket actually for the pump itself. I did forget about the bracket. We do need a bracket to connect it into a system, probably not for a bit of a proof of concept on top of the desk, but we will need to do that when we install it in. The system that we're going to install this bit of a proof of concept in, I'm not exactly sure which one we're going to go for yet, but we want to test this outside. So I'll try and find one of the systems we got, something that we don't mind losing, because obviously if there is any major leaks or any kind of problems, I don't want to lose a decent system. We'll pick something old. We'll test this outside the system first, so we're going to be doing another video on that soon. Make sure you subscribe if you want to catch that. Then we'll later on install it into a system, get some fluid in there, and we'll see how well it actually works. Don't forget that if you have any other hints or tips on what I need to do to be able to get this custom loop set up, particularly for our first, make sure you drop them in the comments below. And if you've got any questions about this tester, you can also ask them there as well, and I'll see if I can actually try to answer. We have done a bit of a DIY job on this one. I might actually look to invest in a better one. I do like the version that Corsair do. They actually do a very nice one, and I might actually invest in that and keep this as like a spare or a backup kind of tester for later on. But I'm sure, as always, we will catch you in the next one.